Last week, an Arizona grand jury indicted 2 local Republican officials who balked at certifying their county's general election results by the legal deadline in 2022 in a standoff with state officials that drew national attention. Cochise County Supervisors Peggy Judd and Tom Crosby each were charged with 2 felonies, interference with an election officer and conspiracy, according to the indictment. Now, why this is important is because little by little, the power of our local governments are being taken away. So if you play this out, if the Board of Supervisors, what they're saying is our purpose is just an administration purpose, then the elections are really being done and approved by the election director, and that's it. Then it goes to the state. So we really still need to have the power to say that, you know, if we don't believe that the election was done right or there are maybe problems, we need to be able to have that. And this is going to be a horrible chilling effect, I believe. And so I'm going to ask the county to do a resolution in support of the 2 supervisors and against the Attorney General, who I think has overstepped. If you remember correctly, we were also told that we would be arrested. And again, let me just repeat what this is for. Merely asking questions, merely wanted to make sure that the elections are done fairly and correctly. And I think if we don't fight this now, this is going to come back to haunt us, and then we'll say, where were you? Everyone will say, where were you, Board of Supervisors? So this is important, and I think we all need to stand up for the supervisors and from Cochise County. Thank you.
First up is George Hill, and everybody that comes up, if you'll state your name at the beginning. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is George Hill. I'm a resident of District 1 and live here in Kingman. My remarks are pertinent to your opening remarks, Supervisor Angus. You're all registered Republicans, but you're not Republican. If you understood what it means to be a small R Republican, then the vote of November 20th, or even that of last August, should have been a 5-0 to scrap the Dominion voting machines, which, despite the best efforts of liars and deniers in high places and both parties, are designed to be remotely manipulated to achieve outcomes not consistent with the will of those entitled to vote. But instead, your obviously predetermined 3-2 vote demonstrated the utter meaninglessness of the capital R after your names. By the way, here's the definition of Republican: a form of government in which supreme authority rests with a body of people entitled to vote and exercised by elected officials accountable to them and governing according to the rule of law. You say you believe in the rule of law, but what you actually believe in is the rule of what's legal. Throughout the discussion, you kept checking with Mr. Esplin, asking, can we do that? Is this legal? And he chaptered and versed you, generally advising you can't do anything unless Phoenix or the feds say you can. By the way, no one has taken your power from you. You've been ceding it. We should take it back, okay? Or keep what we have already. There was never any consideration given to what is ethical or moral or consistent with the principles of natural law upon which the rule of law rests. No, it was just, can we count ballots and cover ourselves, all right? Never mind that we have a 200+ years reliable county-led precinct monitored elections by paper ballots. And when Supervisor Lingenfelter asked Mr. Esplin if there was an exception, he said yes, and counting ballots is allowed, hand counting ballots is allowed if it is determined the use of the machines is impracticable. And then you ask, who defines impracticable? And to which Mr. Esplin said, in effect, you do. The definition of impracticable is not capable of being accomplished by the means at hand. If we accept that the universally desired accomplishment of any election is accuracy, then by all accounts, these machines have demonstrated overwhelmingly that they are incapable of achieving accuracy and are therefore impracticable. But you cave to the idle threats of a petty tyrant, Chris Mays. I say idle because there is no way that she could have sued simply because you exercised your lawful authority to conclude the machines were impractical. Without secure elections, we have no liberty. This is not a red or a blue issue. The preservation of liberty, not doing what is legal, should be your top priority. The preservation of liberty requires risks. The founders were willing to risk their necks to do what King George certainly considered illegal. You aren't willing to risk anything. Discharge this attorney here and just consult Chris Mays, because it's evident that she and her bulldog, Mark Elias, are running and supervising this county.
Thank you,
It is
sir.
evident that. I say again with Thomas Jefferson, it is error alone that needs the force
you,
of
sir.
government. The truth can stand on its own. Thank you for
Thank you
granting
very
me the
much.
extra time.
Greg Befort. Just as a rule of thumb, I'm going to wait until the last little beep, and then time's up.
Morning, Supervisors. For the record, my name is Greg Bedford. I've been up here many times. I want to talk about Supervisor Angus's opening remarks as well, about the power that's been taken away from the supervisors and the concern about that. Well, you had power. You had power back in 2020 when myself and the Havasu Patriots were up here telling you that you were abusing the power, the authority that you did not have to constitutionally, statutorily, or morally to do what you were doing in terms of the COVID shutdown. And the two that I've been focusing on in terms of complicitness have been the two former law enforcement, quote unquote, professionals who spearheaded this. In your role as the chair, you took, and the head of the health department, you ramrodded the shutting down of businesses, which you had no authority to do. Tell people to wear a mask. There's still the social distancing stickers up here on the door. You're still perpetuating a lie. That is a sigil. That's the people's subconsciousness picks up on that when they come in here and they think that there must still be a crisis, which there isn't. Never was. Never was. And the two law enforcement professionals should know the difference between lawful and legal. You knew there was no the lawful basis for what you were doing. You should have known in the positions that you were in. And yet you censored people. The first thing you did was argued about how quickly we should shut down and hide. And then you went and hid for months. And then as soon as we had an opportunity to come in here, you put sheriff's deputies out here until we went and met with the sheriff, who said, this is not a law enforcement problem. He knew it from the beginning. We're not enforcing masks, we're not shutting down businesses. But what you did was went and put security guards out here to keep me and many other people from coming in here and pushing back against your narrative, which was false. So before we look at giving the local supervisors here any more power, how about we hold you accountable for the power you abused back then? By your own admission, Supervisor Angus, you said before Proclamation 1776 was implemented that we overstepped, didn't you? We overstepped. And I'm not taking aim at the three of you, because I know the two of you, particularly, you had a lopsided board and you pushed back. You did. And certainly Supervisor Lingenfelter took the lead in pushing 1776 forward. And I got to give him credit for that. It was a bold move. And was a turning point in this lie, this fraud. You know, communism is what's killing this country, and it's taken on the modern form now since the early 70s of modern day religious and political Zionism. That's what's killing this country now. I'll be back.
Christopher Daugherty, Mohave County taxpayer. Woe to those who decree unrighteous decrees, who write misfortune, which they have prescribed, to rob the needy of justice and to take what is right from the poor of my people. Isaiah 10, 1 and 2. On November 20, 2023, in a display of unparalleled cowardice, this board turned its back on the will of the people, caved at the feet of Chris Mays, and voted against hand tabulation of ballots in the 2024 election. What an outrage. While I am let down by your actions, in retrospect, I wasn't surprised. What I saw that day was pure kabuki theater. Prove me wrong, please. In my view, this was an orchestrated, well-rehearsed public charade. The back and forth discussion, hemming and hawing over legal technicalities, Sonny Borelli chiming in, the heaping of continual praise upon the elections director, finger wagging at the concept of spending a few shekels to ensure free and fair elections, all histrionics designed to gaslight and deceive. I did find it fascinating that this agenda item was the final one on the list, but then why not save the best or worst for last? In prior meetings, items which have drawn a significant audience were moved up the queue, but not this time. Turns out there was a sinister reason, Mr. Chairman. Made it so much easier for you to vote no, gavel down, and skulk out of the building. But you, Mr. Lingenfelter, do not deserve all the blame. There's plenty to go around. From the usual nay voters when it comes to protecting our rights, Ms. Bishop and Mr. Johnson. At least I know what to expect from you two. Ms. Angus and Mr. Gould, while you voted yes, in my opinion, you both knew what the outcome would be, chomping at the bit to celebrate your heroism and pumped up virtue. All of you should resign. But at least you aren't going to jail. You saved your bacon at the expense of we the people. But there has to be more to it. 2 of you no voters on this board are running for re-election. Doesn't that heave support towards your opponents? Why then would you vote the way you did? Are you against hand counts because you intend to cheat? That's how it looks. What else are we to believe? I sincerely hope I'm wrong about your motives, your cowardice, and your avarice. This, the last meeting of 2024, leaves me sad, frustrated, fed up, let down, but not defeated. I will live to fight another day. We, the people, aren't going anywhere. But to those of you seated piously upon your elevated thrones of authority, I pray God's mercy on your souls.